Hello everybody, thank you for joining us here for the special edition of the Walsall Rewind over here on our pre-season tour of Drogheda. On stage with us, I'd like to welcome Rob and Harley from the Yellow Ribbon podcast. And then from a Drogheda side of things, we've got Drogheda fan Dave and somebody who covers Drogheda in Barry as well. Thank you very much all, like I say, for joining us here. Paul will start things off. You know, we've had a couple of days here now in Ireland. Have you enjoyed yourself so far?
Yeah, I've loved it. It's been brilliant. Really good experience. Obviously, first time I've done a pre-season tour with the team. I know you've done one about 5 years ago in Poland, but it's been really good. You know, the lads have worked really hard as well. Training session yesterday. We travelled out on the Sunday as well. And it's nice being together with everyone. It's you know, spending time, that quality time, that bonding. It's been really good for the lads, I imagine. And yeah, obviously Ireland's a fantastic place, you know, got to see a bit of Dublin last night as well, which was really good. So yeah, really enjoyed it so far. I'm just looking forward to the game tonight now.
I know he enjoyed it because he stumbled in at about 3 o'clock, so he definitely did. Have you guys been able to go out yourselves and, you know, explore a little bit, taste the...
Maybe. Dave's taken us to some of the sites, and I think his comment was, I'll take you where Irish people go, not where tourists go. So we've seen some things.
We won't divulge into those, but that's for off the pod. But as you can see, you're wearing the new away kit, which has just been released. You know, we revealed it on Sunday, and the lads are going to be wearing it tonight in the game. What are your thoughts on it?
Personally, it's my favourite of the three. I think we've historically had kind of similar kits between the seasons, but this is quite a different design, as Walsall fans will attest to, and I think the fact that people have bought it already here today shows it's a really popular one, and it went down really well online.
From a Drogheda perspective, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm a fan. It's different as well, as Rob already said, but yeah, I'm a big fan of a black kit as it is, but I think I like the red trim in it. It looks pretty decent. I like the way the badge actually ingrains into the design as well, so yeah, it's definitely one I'd buy, but it's not quite as good as the Drogs kit, you know.
Yeah, I think red and black is always a winner. I think you can't go wrong with that. And also, Poundland is my favourite shop, so any shirt with Poundland on it is good by me.
Well, yeah, it's one of our main sponsors, so thanks to them. Obviously, it looks great on there. It'll be the first time we obviously wear that shirt tonight. We've obviously got the new home and the new third shirts out there as well, and we've seen those in our pre-season games so far, Paul. We've played Alvechurch, Aston Villa, Tamworth, Lincoln in a behind closed doors game, and Birmingham City so far. How do you think the pre-season schedule has gone so far in terms of getting what we need out of it from a club perspective?
I think it's gone really well. I think there's been different kinds of tests for the lads, haven't there? Obviously, the Aston Villa game, you know you're not going to have a lot of the ball, are you? Whereas against Alvechurch, obviously the Saddlers are probably the favourites, probably have a lot more of the ball, so you get to test both sides. I think the Blues game was a really good test, League One side, and I thought the Saddlers really acquitted themselves really well and really took the game to Blues, and I thought unlucky to lose 1-0, but I thought that gave a good indication of where we are, and I think, you know, tonight's game will be a fantastic occasion as well, and then obviously we've got Solihull Moors coming up, haven't we? And I think that's always a good gauge because they've been knocking on the door of League Two as well, and you know, we've gone there, had some good exercises there that has really set us up well for the season. So I think the programme's been really good, the games have been enjoyable, and I've seen how hard the lads have worked, you know, on the pitch and on the training ground, and you know, I'm really looking forward to the season now.
I think in our interview with assistant head coach Gary Waddock yesterday, if nobody's watched that, I'd highly recommend going and listening to it because it offers a completely different perspective to what the head coach might have said, because you get, you know, a different viewpoint on it. But he talks about, you know, just in terms of having a completely different sort of schedule in regards to Alvechurch, obviously, like you say, you'd expect to go into the game as favourites, and then Aston Villa, it was their first pre-season game, so it's a bit of a different workout. But in the interview we did with Sads himself before the Blues game, he said it was, you know, they're like the Harlem Globetrotters of League One in terms of the money that they're spending, the money they're going to spend. But I thought we, you know, pitted ourselves against them, you know, really well, and the lads got out of it what they needed to, albeit the results not important at that point. But we showcased what we can do against that sort of side.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think we really took the game to them, and I think the head coach touched on it. I think a lot more lads are now getting them 90 minutes under their belt. Obviously, at the start of pre-season, it was like 2 teams playing 45 minutes each. They've now built that fitness. A lot of them are now hitting 90 minutes, whether it's through the Blues game. I think also that Lincoln game as well was a good one, where a lot more lads could top up and get 90 minutes under their belt. So I think Programme's worked really well overall, and I think we're in really good shape going into the season.
We've had 7 signings so far in there. Been happy with how everybody's been brought in. It's not been one of those summers where you're thinking, oh God, we need a complete turnover of 15, 16 players like we've had previously. It's been a meticulous process of making sure that everybody brought in, as Sads always says, is the right character, and everybody seems to have fitted in so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you say, great characters. We always have that little joke every time we meet a new signing. One of us turns to each and say, "Oh, he's a nice lad, isn't he?" And that's just been the theme every time. And I think that's part of the recruitment process. But you mentioned 7 signings there. I think if you're a Premier League club, you look at a summer of 7 and you think, "Oh gosh, we've been really busy." But when we look at it and we sort of think, "Oh, how many do you reckon we'll bring in?" When we sort of said, "Oh, it could be anything between 7 and 10," we said, "Blimey, that's a really quiet summer for a team at League 2 level." I think, with the way of contracts, a lot shorter term contracts in the lower leagues compared to the Premier League. So there is always that turnover of players regardless. But I think 7 is felt like a quiet summer, didn't it, really? And obviously 2 of them are returning players in Josh Gordon and David Cagby. And then it further emphasises what the head coach said, because he did there was a lot of work done during last season, wasn't there, in contract extensions, in keeping the players we wanted to keep at the club. And I think that was further added by bringing back Dave and Josh Gordon, who will be really good additions. I think Charlie, again, will be an exciting one to watch, as will Albert. I'm sure everyone was excited about. Sam as well, and Tommy. They'll be wrestling for that shirt as well. So, yeah, really, really like the mix of players that have arrived here. And, looking forward to Connor Barrett as well, I think, coming from a really good season at Fold. So, lots to look forward to, isn't there?
Before we get on to it, asking you guys as a fan perspective on that one in that list that's coming. Obviously, Albert catches the eye of being a Championship appearance record holder, but somebody that we've noticed, as a big change in terms of character was David Cagby. He came in last year. He's a fantastic lad. He was quite shy when he came in. Didn't really open himself up to the group, but over the course of last season, he really came out of himself as a personality, and I think just bringing him back and seeing the hunger and desire in him personally to want to come back to the club. And I think he said, just being wanted by a head coach just shows. And I think, he's a fantastic character, even though he's only at 20.
I was buzzing when I was told Big Dave was coming back. I was delighted. I enjoyed watching it felt like he was on a journey with us last season, didn't he? He really grew, he really developed. Played a number of roles in that defensive line as well, but I remember him saying he wanted to hit around the 30 appearance mark, and I think he exceeded that by the end of March. So he really grew, he really came on leaps and bounds, and I'm delighted that he's back. And I think the environment that's been built by the head coach, encourages players to want to be part of it, and I think that's really important. So, with the recruitment that's happened and all the work that's gone on behind the scenes, it's really made me excited for the season ahead. I don't know what you guys think. What have you made of the signings and all the additions so far?
Yeah, I think something we've spoken about before on the pod is that probably the last 6-7 years there's always been a high churn of players, and it's always felt that we've recruited maybe for a couple of different systems that manager might not have nailed down what tactic, but I think it's going to be pretty clear how we're going to be playing this season. It's going to be 3-5-2. The signings have been targeted. It's been more like specified, like Connor Barrett coming in. I think one of the things last season is we had a couple of players who did really well in the right wing back role, but weren't maybe a natural right wing back. We brought someone in that's, probably one of the best right wing backs of the non-league, and was quite well reported to be chased by a lot of Football League clubs. So I think having those types of players come in where they're recruited to play a role in a system that we've now had 2 pre-seasons. The guys might completely disagree with what I'm saying here, but it's one of the first times that we've had 2 pre-seasons with the same manager, with a strong core of the squad that have now worked with him in that system for a few years. I mean, I think Matt was the first manager in, I can't remember how many, to actually start and end a season, which it's kind of crazy to think that we don't feel like a club that churn managers all the time, but I think we're now very stable, and I think that's what is good enough to get you out of League Two, is if you can be consistent, you can be stable within the club itself.
I think if you look at the likes of perhaps Leyton Orient, who went up a couple of seasons ago, where they had a core of players that were together for those couple of years, and you look at the teams that come up from the National League as well that tend to then go on and do well, it's because they add to the groups that they've already got. And Paul mentioned it earlier about the contract extensions. Last season, seeing the likes of Jack Earing, extend his stay, Liam Gordon, Brandon Comley in there, they're having those sorts of mainstays in the group just allow you to then go on and build as a team, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I've been looking at it is that it's been a lot of square pegs for square holes, and that's what Matt Sadler's done really well. Is he's developed the squad, he's developed the younger players in it, and now he's bringing in a little bit of experience with Albert coming in. But the squad's growing together, and that's what I think it is. Matt needed to grow with the team as a manager, and the players needed the same sort of thing. So I think they've worked together, and there were some tough times, and there was some difficult points. We look back to kind of the winter period of last year where it felt like we're in a bit of trouble, but they stuck together, they stuck with it, and we got those, was it 6 wins on the bounce, was it? And we're going into this season now with a lot of optimism because they've stuck together, and we've heard it on the pod from a couple of ex-players. The dressing room is so together, and I'm sure the guys can attest to this. They love the manager, and they're in it together.
I think that's always key as well, isn't it, to have the players who've got themselves sort of like, they're in an environment that feels almost safe for them in terms of they can grow themselves as a group, just there to make sure that actually they've got a head coach that really wants them and really trusts them, because we've seen it from the lads that have come back in regards to Josh Gordon, in regards to David Cagby. They've all mentioned just how much Matt Sadler has been a testament to them coming back to the club.
Yeah, and I think that those two in particular, and when we look last summer to Danny Johnson coming back, you've got, DJ is one of the best strikers in the league. You've got David Cagby, who grew so much in his spell, and I think will be targeting a lot of playing time again this season. But he's rejected a contract at a championship club to come to work with this Walsall coaching staff, this club. And you've got Albert Adoma. I'm sure, given his reputation, he had a number of offers on the table. Or if they weren't offers, he probably could have gone to pretty much any League Two club and made a case for signing for them. But he's chosen to come to Walsall, and that's not just coincidence or luck. And like we said, we've been lucky enough the last few weeks to speak to Tom Knowles and Isaac Hutchinson. Both have spoken about how detailed the coaching staff are working with players to improve them and to work on their game, and that even if we've won a match, there's still lessons to be learned, things to improve on, and I think it's no coincidence that these players are then coming back into that environment.
And I think you mentioned the staff there. Obviously, you've got the likes of Dan Still, who's just come in. Obviously, Dan Watson was with us last year in the goalkeeping department. But you've then got Darren Byfield in Gary Waddock and Sads. But it's the ones that you might not necessarily talk about, like Lewis Needham, who's the first team analyst, puts in hours upon hours of clipping things together, whether it's from training, whether it's from games, just to make sure that the players are in the best possible situations. And whilst that doesn't necessarily get seen by everybody from an outside perspective, I think there are clear patterns that supporters can hopefully see, that there is a style of play at the football club that is now developing because of the hard work that's going in from everybody at the training ground.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that we like to ask guests is unsung heroes at the club, people that the fans might not know about that are doing a great job, and we always get, we always ask for one person and we always get five. Because the players, there's so many people doing great jobs at Walsall that do go unnoticed. And I think more in recent years, since Trivela have taken over, we've seen the culture shift a little bit, and everybody's working in the same direction now, more so than it was before. And I think it's becoming more and more clear to see that even if people are only sticking around for a couple of years and moving on, you can tell things are going well when people are moving on to better things, because it shows that they're doing such a great job that they're getting poached by other people. So the culture there is really great, that we're helping other people move their careers forward. And it's benefiting everyone. While they're at Walsall, it benefits us. And they move on, and it's great for them personally. So You can see that the culture is just fantastic in the club, and the people behind the scenes that we might not know, we know they're doing great work, and we can all see it on the pitch that it's coming together.
Yeah, that's it. And I think you need the whole club together, football staff, non-football staff, and I think that's what's been built. There's been so many positive changes behind the scenes. Obviously, the opening of the locker is quite a big one. That's gone down really well. There's loads of big plans for that, and they've even made changes in the office, just giving the office like a decorated and new carpets and things like that. And when staff do leave, I think they look at it really strategically in the way they sort of replace them, and then the people that are coming into the club, they're bringing new, really good ideas, and it's been fantastic to sort of almost have that new challenge for yourself when you're already at the club, like with new people coming in, bringing new ideas, and it just elevates your work. And I think the environment that's built, not just on the football side of it, but on the non-football side of it, is excellence. Be the best you can be, and there's so much scope to improve yourself and get better, and it's that culture's really helped. So it gives a lot of hope for the season ahead. So I was just wondering what are sort of your guys' hopes for the coming season. I think safe to say we're all very optimistic on the back of what was a strong finish to last season. Top half finish for the first time since relegation to League Two in 2019. So Rob, Harley, what as supporters, what are your hopes and prayers for the season ahead?
I don't see with the players that we've got and who we've kind of kept hold of why playoffs would be out of the question. I think we've made some smart additions. I know that there's obviously areas that do need further recruitment, but the season's not started yet, so there's still a lot of time. But you look at how close we got last season. I mean, the position didn't really represent for me how close we were, because I think there were 4 or 5 teams all within like one win of each other, which come the end of the season is crazy. But I don't see why, if everyone can stay fit, if everyone can hit the ground running, why we can't be in the mix for playoffs and obviously winning the league. But we'll go with playoffs for now.
Yeah, I think the same. I think playoffs is where we should be aiming. I think it's a realistic goal. And I think the players, Hutch and Knowles, we spoke to last season, I think they really thought Walsall were good enough to get promotion last year, and it just didn't quite happen. And look, someone's got to finish 11. And sadly it was us. But this now coming season, we're going to be the team, I think, that finishes in the playoffs, that gets it over the line. It was Sadler's first job. It's not going to be perfect, but he's got another year now to learn from his mistakes, learn what worked well, what didn't work so well, and build upon it. And there were things last season that were out of our control, injuries. The defensive line changed so much because players were dropping in and out all the time. If we can get on top of injury crisis and hopefully not have an injury crisis, there is always going to be 1 or 2, but have minimised that, then we're in a great place, because the foundations of the squad are really good, and they are there. Maybe we need a couple signings just to add a little bit more, but it's all about a core squad, and I think our core squad is more than good enough to get us into the playoffs. And then when you're in the playoffs, who knows? We've seen teams like Carlisle go up when, let's be real, they probably should. They weren't the best team in the playoffs that year. They went up. Anything can happen in the playoffs. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's a really open league this year as well. Obviously, last season, a lot of people would have looked at Wrexham and Stockport and seen them as outstanding favourites. I personally don't think there's quite that outstanding favourite this year. You're right. There's obviously a few teams that people look at and think, they'll probably be there or thereabouts. So I kind of agree with you. I feel like it's a realistic challenge. We came really close last year, took it to the final day. There's no reason why we can't push again. As you said, the squad's in good shape. You touched on there, Harley, maybe a couple more signings. When you look at the squad on the whole, the majority of positions, if not all, it looks like we've got at least 2 players for each one. So is there anything either you feel, or a particular area you think could add a few tweaks that might elevate us, or is there anything you want to see happening between now and the end of the window?
I think, like you said, we've got 2 good players in pretty much every position. I think we're a little light up top, and but then again, I think you ask any League Two club if they could sign a 25-goal a season striker, no one's going to say no. But I think we do need depth there, and I think it's clear based off of sort of the recruitment in January, the kind of the profile of striker that Sadler wants. I think if we can get those in, maybe another creative midfielder, just to, I think, take the burden off the players who maybe play that role. That if you're playing, like, let's face it, no footballer at any level is going to be in their best form for 46 games across the season. So if you can have those players coming off the bench that can make a difference or start a game and create that healthy competition, then it drives players on. And I think we were kind of talking about this before. One of the best spells of last season was when Jack Earing came back in, and suddenly there was another player fighting in midfield that all of the midfielders raised their game. And I think if we could get another potentially creative midfielder and a couple of strikers in to increase that competition, it's going to spur the whole kind of unit on. And yeah, so I don't think we're a million miles away at all. We've got solid players across the pitch, and I say that creative midfield. I think our midfield as a whole looks really solid, and I think our back line looks really solid as well. And you know, if we can keep a clean sheet every week, that'd be great. But you then only need to score one goal. So let's go. And also, we said playoffs. If you want to do automatics, that'd be much better for all of our heart rates come the end of the season. But yeah, I think I'm feeling really optimistic going into this season.
I was going to say, you mentioned the midfield there. Somebody who has been pretty standout during pre-season so far is Jamie Jellis. He feels like a new signing because we didn't really see him at that point. I think he's got 3 and 5 in pre-season so far. He scored a goal in the Lincoln game, and it was such a cool finish. He literally just ran onto it. He didn't try and blast it. He literally just side-footed it in. We saw his goal against Tamworth, which was an absolute stunner, coming in on his left foot and wrapping it into the top corner. But would he be one of the standout players that you witnessed so far during pre-season?
I mean, I'd say so, sure. I don't think any of us really knew what to expect from him. He's come from Tamworth. It's the National League North. We don't quite know what's going to come from it. He's still a young lad. He's still kind of plying his trade, working out what kind of midfielder he is, what kind of player he is. But it's nice to see that he's found his feet pretty quickly, and he didn't really get an opportunity at the end of the season. But it's good to see that he's getting his chances. And I think it's going to be a lot like Jack Earing when he came in. No one expected Jack to start as much as he did, but he forced his way into the team, and he was one of the better players. And I think Jellis has a great opportunity to grab a foothold in the team and say, I want to start. And I think it's that great battle we're going to have. And when you talk about depth, that's exactly what it is. You're going to have Lakin, Jellis, Earing, all battling to be the attacking mid. Mayer as well. We've got those players who can do it. And like Jellis, I think he's thrown his hat into the ring early doors and said, I can do it. And Sadler's going to see that and go, let's give him a chance. Maybe it might not be the first game of the season, but maybe he changes up second or third, and we start to see different people come in and out and work out what works. But I think they're all giving a good reason why they should start, and it's a great problem to have.
Yeah, you mentioned when Jack Earing came in, I think he made 50 appearances or over 50 appearances in his first season. And similar to Jamie, he was an unknown quantity to a lot of people. And I think those that have watched any of our pre-season games so far, or perhaps the final game of last season away at Wimbledon, albeit not the result we wanted to get ourselves potentially into the playoffs. But when Jamie came on for the last half an hour or so, he was still, because nobody knew about him, nobody knew what he could do. And I think he took the ball, took the game by the scruff of the neck and just tried to make things happen. And I think we've seen that. Don, you probably testify to that later about Jamie, but he's just one of those that's come in and is just sort of, he's enjoying the experience. So we've seen it with Harry Williams last year, coming in completely new to the idea of playing every day, coming in and training every day. He's just fully enjoying it, and you can see him developing now as a player, both physically and just mentally reading the game well as well.
Yeah, and I think he looks like when he gets the ball, his first thought is, how can I move this forward? And it's positive, and it's really positive play. He seems really energetic. Doesn't seem like he's shy in a tackle. And I was saying about a creative midfielder before, but you don't want just to have a team full of one-trick ponies. That's what's really impressed me about Lakin, is that he'll be on the edge of the box trying to, feed one of the strikers, and then 20 seconds later he's defending our box, putting in a tough tackle. You need players that can do both, because there's going to be times where we're out of possession and defending. So you need players to be competent defensively. You then need players like Donovan who can do marauding runs from centre-back and score goals of the season at times. But it's having players that can do multiple roles, and I think we've got that. And I think one thing that's really impressed me from this pre-season is every match has felt like it's not a pre-season game. It's felt like it is a competitive match. And I don't know whether that's because there is that competition for places. So players are thinking, I need to perform because I need to earn my starting place. Whether it's the sort of the mentality in the dressing room, I don't know where it's come from, but it's felt like everyone is working their fullest. They're not just going through the motions in pre-season. And I think that's exactly how you then hit the ground running come the first day.
Yeah, absolutely. And just from listening to what everyone said, it sounds to me like Matt Sadler's going to have a lot of headaches on the 9th of August. I don't think he'll get much sleep the night before. No, the 9th, the night before the game. Trying to pick his team because, like you say, so many people are throwing their hat into the ring. So there's certainly plenty to stew on, isn't there? And just on the conversation we've had with you guys, it's clear that a lot has been talked about the impact Trivela have made at Walsall in I think it's just over 2 years now since they took over. So, they've made a lot of positive impacts on and off the pitch. Dave Barry, obviously, Trivela took over Drogheda. Was it just over a year ago? November, sorry, yeah. So, what impact have they made in their first few months at Drogheda?
Barry, do you want to answer that one first? You probably have a bit more insider knowledge.
I'll give it a go. It's been really positive now, to be fair. Look, I think if any supporter looks at the league table, they'll see Drogheda propping up the table at the minute and might think things aren't going very well. But it's about a lot more than what's happening on the pitch. Trivela have had a really positive impact in terms of, I think, increasing player budget. That's doubled this season from last. They've sort of mirrored a lot of the stuff that's gone on at Walsall as well. They've purchased the ground back, which was owned by the FAI for 35 years, similar to what they did over at the Bescott, purchasing the freehold. So that's a huge boost to the club. And generally speaking, it's just kind of implementing a more professional sort of mindset and approach around the club. Drogheda is a small outfit. It's a part-time team at the moment, which is transitioning to full-time. And there's a lot of things on and off the pitch that need a little bit of work. The volunteers at the club do absolutely amazing. Some of them are here today and they do so much work, but they need that support as well. And Trivela have in fairness, offered that support. I know Wes Hill, the executive director, is over for the summer. I think he's over here for 4 or 5 months. So he's doing a lot of work on the ground. And he's, I guess, getting to know the club a little bit because it is a completely new environment for someone like him to come into. And for even a group like Trivela, I think when you take over a club like Drogheda, it's quite different from an established Football League club like Walsall, just in terms of the infrastructure that's there, in terms of the ambitions, in terms of budgets and all these kind of things. So they've gone through what they've described to me several times as a bit of a learning process. They don't want people to judge them too quickly or too harshly. It's very much about getting to know the community, getting to know the town, the club, and I suppose their aims for the future and what they want to do. So it's about much more than what's happening on the pitch. Of course, the manager, Kevin Doherty, has got a lot of support, and that's been sort of no better example of that, I suppose, is the July window. Drogheda have just signed 6 new players, some permanent, some loans. So it's that kind of support that when Drogheda find themselves in the predicament they are at the moment, propping up the league, it's about giving that support in terms of recruitment, investment in the team, to try and get them out of this predicament. And that's what they've done. And I think from speaking to supporters, there's a really positive vibe, not necessarily looking at the league table, but more generally around the club at the moment.
Saw some lads from Walsall, didn't they? They hadn't done too badly. But yeah, it's interesting what you say there about the sort of learning curve. One thing I noticed in their first year with Walsall, it felt like they were doing the same. One thing that really stood out to me as a member of staff was, I think a couple of months after they took over, every member of staff got a chance to sit down with Ben Boycott, and it was just so Ben could get to know us, what our day-to-day role is, how we find life at the club, and then just get to know us all as a person. He put so much time aside for us just so he could get to know us, and I think that was a massive part of the process for him to get to know the club. And I felt that was really nice from him, and I feel like he did that across the whole club. And it felt like in the second season we started to see a real impact, and things were moving really quickly. And like the opening of the locker again, that really motored in the second season. So, Dave, from your perspective as a supporter, what's it been like now going to Weavers Park? Have you noticed a lot of changes, or is there a different feel to the club?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I think the difference is, 4 or 5 years ago we were in the first division, rotting away and missing out on promotion through playoffs and last minute defeats in extra time out in Finn Harps on a Monday night, which was awful. Anyone who's been up there knows it's a horrible trek, especially on a Monday night in the middle of November. But to get away from that, to get back up into the Premier Division during COVID was again a massive boost for the club. Obviously, before Trivela came in, the club was basically going nowhere fast in terms of funds and things like that. So you could see we're the only part-time team in the league at the moment in the Premier Division, which probably does explain why we're bottom of the league at the moment. But as a club, we've massively punched above our weight for years now, and Trivela have come in. Obviously, the fans obviously want them because I think there was only one person voted no, it says it all. But I'm in the stands every week. I see it week in, week out that the fans are there. We're here to support the club. Trivela have been fantastic so far. You see them around. You see them bringing sponsors in. You see them bringing money in. I think there's a house out in Clogherhead or something where they've stuck 6 players in. Last year we wouldn't have gotten that because the club didn't have the funds to own a house that they could put players into, so we couldn't bring in the likes of your France Barrows, you couldn't bring in Dougie or anything like that. So yeah, it's been a massive boost for the club as a whole off the pitch, and I've no doubt that it'll happen on the pitch the longer it just goes on. As you say, the second season seemed to really boost over in Walsall. Hopefully we can stay up this season, I'm confident of that, but I've no doubt that next season will be a massive boost again.
You mentioned the supporters there. I came over for a game at the start of June, and I was really impressed with the support that was shown. And you mentioned, although being bottom of the league at the moment and punching above your weight, like you say, are you confident that if that second season improves, like you just mentioned, it's happened with Walsall, that more and more supporters will continue to come back and try and experience what is being built at the club? Yeah,
as I said, the crowds have been getting bigger every year. We've been selling out non-stop. It's great to see, and it's got to the point now where you can't buy a ticket on the gate for a lot of games, which is when I was younger. I've been going to games for 15, 16 years, and it used to be you rock up on a Friday night, you just give your 10 or your 15 quid in at the gate, and you just get in. And now they're putting out things hours before kickoff, days before kickoff, saying there will be no tickets on sale at the gate. And if that keeps going, it's that FOMO, the fear of missing out of, I need to be there on a Friday night, and I wasn't there Friday when we beat Waterford, and I was sat there, I was out for my brother's birthday, and I was looking at it saying, this is the worst day of my life because I'm missing this. It's I'd rather be in United Park, Weavers Park, to see the Drogs on a Friday night, or be down in Galway on a Friday night, down in Kerry or whatever. I'll do the trek just to be there to see this team doing well and to feel the atmosphere of the lads. And the ultra group, the famous 45, do incredible work around the area as well, which again is supported by the club. That feeling of being there, it's unrivaled, and the fear of missing out is real when it comes to this, because I hate not being there on a Friday night. Even though I'm not in with the fans, I like to be a bit further away and watch from afar and feel the atmosphere, but still watch the game. I hate not being there. So I can imagine there'll be a lot of people that'll feel the same as I do.
One player who's obviously come over to Walsall side of things now is Evan Weir. I spoke to him, about that atmosphere. But from a Drogheda perspective, obviously, if we've not necessarily seen him in too much match action so far, what do you guys think that he will add to the Walsall team?
Well, one of the big things that Kevin Doherty tries to do in terms of his recruitment at Drogheda is whenever he brings in a player, it tends to be someone who offers versatility. There's so many players in the Drogheda squad that can play 2, 3, 4 positions. That's really important, especially when you're a small club working off a limited budget and you have to try and build a squad of 20 players. You need people who can fill multiple positions, and Evan is definitely one of them. This season, We've seen him play 3 different positions, predominantly a left back and a left footer. He's also played sort of left centre half in a 3. He played left centre half in a 2 for the second half of last season, pretty much, after someone you guys will know, Manny Adebayoga, left Drogheda to join Norwich. Before then, he ended up on loan with you guys for the second half of last season. So, and then, of course, just prior to him leaving for Walsall, at the end of his loan period back at Drogheda, he was playing on the left wing. So Evan fills a lot of different gaps in the squad. He's a really adaptable player, a front foot defender. He's quite, for sometimes you see fullbacks and they're thrust into maybe centre half as a stopgap position, but Evan's really, really comfortable there. He's quite aggressive, really good aerially. But one of the big things, I suppose, the major things that Evan offers is going forward. In attack, he's a very, very good crosser of the ball. Free kicks, set pieces, corners, he takes them all. And his deliveries, I would say, in the first half of the season for Drogheda, almost kept them afloat in this relegation battle. I think he scored 4 goals. I don't know what his assist numbers are, but I'd imagine they're pretty high as well. It was those dead ball situations and set pieces that were leading to goals for Drogheda and keeping them in games. And the threat that he offered from full back or wing back or then on the left wing was so important to the team. But as well as that, in pre-season, he was being used at that left centre half position in a 3, and he's so comfortable on the ball. He was coming out and joining in midfield, adding an extra man in that area of the pitch as well. So he gives you that dynamic as well. There's a lot that Evan has got to give. He's a recent enough call up to the Republic of Ireland under 21 setup. So I know you have, Oisin McEntee and people like that in the squad as well who'd be familiar with the international setup at underage level as well. So Evan's a really, really well thought of player in the League of Ireland. I know prior to him going to Walsall, there was a lot of interest from clubs higher up the food chain in Ireland as well. So I think you've managed to snare yourself a really good player there, and it's just one example as well of the kind of connection between the two clubs now that, Walsall might have a little bit of a head start on any players, and of course Drogheda going the other way as well can get people like Dougie in the door.
You mentioned Dougie there. From the press box, what have you made of Dougie's performance? He's obviously made a really good start in his first few games, and then Dave as well. What's your perspective from a fan as well?
Yeah, well, from my perspective, I don't want to give the guy a big head because he's sat in the front row, but it's been really, really impressive, to be fair. I think he scored, was it 3 in his first 2 games? I think he scored the penalty against Shelbourne that got Drogheda the draw against the league leaders, a game they probably should have won, to be fair. Played really well in that game. And then he scored 2 in defeat to Dundalk in the league derby at Oriel. But Dougie's actually developed a really good partnership with our Haitian striker Franz Perrault up front. The last couple of games they've been paired together. Drogs don't usually play 2 up front, but I think Kevin Doherty was keen to add that little extra bit of personnel to his squad that Dougie fills perfectly as well. And again, Dougie's versatile, as we know. He can play on either flank, I think, and through the middle. So he offers that to Kevin. Really, really impressed, to be fair. I think him and Franz could potentially fire the club to safety. I think, hopefully, certainly anyway. But fans are optimistic. They're really happy with him and hopefully get a few more goals.
Not too much pressure then, Dougie.
I will give him a big head. Dougie, I love you. Please stay. Never leave us. No, look, it's all we ever ask for in professional football or whatever senior football is that they work hard and put their body on the line, and Dougie just works his socks off. Yeah, he's exactly the type of player that we need in the League of Ireland. It's a player with a bit of pace that will run at people, make defenders think twice about taking the ball out from the back. And again, as Barry's already said, he's seems to have struck up a really nice partnership with Franz Perrault in the 2 up top and a 3-5-2, and it seemed to have worked the last 2 games. Yeah, look, as long as it keeps us up, I'm happy. I don't really care who's on the pitch, but Dougie's doing exceptional work up there. Don't care how many goals he scores, just as long as he keeps working hard and we stay up, that's all that matters.
Barry, you mentioned the links that the clubs will have in regards to maybe being that little bit further ahead, connections that have already been there in regards to the likes of Freddie Draper, who everybody adored in the first half of last season from our perspective, and Manny as well, who you've already mentioned. Having those links there can only benefit both clubs, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think initially when Trivela first took over Drogheda United, there might have been a little bit of trepidation amongst probably both sets of supporters. Just from Walsall's point of view, perhaps that Trivela were taking their eye off the ball a little bit in Walsall, and maybe in Drogheda that they were becoming a feeder club of sorts. But I don't think it's like that at all. I do think there is mutual benefits for both sides. You saw that in obviously the arrival of Dougie here. Some supporters might have thought that Drogheda would benefit from getting the best young players maybe that Walsall had in their youth setup. But here we have a fully fledged first team player with I think 60 plus appearances under his name, and who scored goals in League Two and has been playing. I think he started against Southampton in the FA Cup back in January. A really high caliber player has come to Drogheda, and you guys have got a really high caliber player in Evan Weir going the other way. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Freddie, you said you had him first half of last season. We had him first half of last season too. Slightly different calendar, but what a player. Like, that guy's destined for big things. He'll be playing League One this season, but probably not for long. With Lincoln or someone else, I think he's going to rise up the pyramid. And Manny Adebayega's a smashing player. His rise is actually quite incredible, because at the start of last season, the 2023 season for Drogheda, he was on the bench. He wasn't even starting games for Drogheda. It was only an injury to another player that sort of brought him in. And I think as well, Kevin was looking at him predominantly as a midfielder, and he came in, and within weeks, I think he was widely considered to be one of the best centre-halves in the league. And he struck up a really good partnership with Conor Keeley. And this was a player who hadn't played any first-team minutes prior. Drogheda took him from Dundalk's youth team in the off-season. So just shows that Kevin's got a good eye for a player, but so do Norwich, so do Walsall and Matt Sadler, who recognise that talent. And I would imagine there's going to be a lot more of that going forward. And so far, so good. There's been no duds, I think, on either side, and it looks good.
I think from Manny, from a Walsall perspective, he came in and obviously he was really patient in regards to getting his chance. And I think when he did he score 3 in 4 games, just one player of the month. Yeah, one young player of the month, and it was just all of a sudden he just burst onto the scene. And I think we were desperate for more people to chip in with goals. And then when he did, it was like it just couldn't stop.
Yeah, we were crying out for defensive reinforcements, and this lad comes along on loan, and he's just unbelievable. He was fantastic, and we got good reviews from him from Dave, and Dave's never wrong, to be honest with you. It wasn't just that he was putting in really solid defensive performances. He was scoring the goals, like you say, and those goals were just so important, and they were getting us like winners and stuff like that. And I don't know where he'll end up, but he's gonna rise through the ranks because he's just too good. And I would expect he'll probably play for Norwich this season, and he might not be at Norwich very long, if they don't go to the Premier League, because this kid's got it, and we saw it. Drog saw it, and I'm just happy we had him. I'm not even that bothered that he's gone, because I'm just happy we had him, because he deserves to be playing at a higher level, in all honesty.
There was that quiet confidence about him, wasn't there? He knew he had to come in and bide his time as a young player. He knew there was a settled back line there already. And when an opportunity came up for him to come in and make an appearance, make a standpoint to try and get himself into the team, he certainly did that. And like you say, I fully expect him to go on and do much bigger and better things. And I think you're right there in terms of I do think he will play for Norwich this season.
Yeah, I think it's kind of something that we said earlier about the kind of the team ethos. We suddenly went from having 3 quite seasoned pros in defence to then Taylor Allen fitting in on the left side. We then got Manny on the right side and David Cadway in the middle. And I think the average age was like 21 between the 3 of them. And we didn't lose a game. And it's that kind of ethos and work ethic that when we signed Manny, like Harley said, Dave was gushing over like his ability, and he showed it. He got his first opportunity, took it, and then sort of earned his starting place. And kind of when the likes of Donovan were coming back from injury, suddenly there's this really big competition for places. But yeah, I think it would be a crime if he wasn't playing in for Norwich this season at some point.
You mentioned the average age. Somebody who can bring that up is Donovan, who sat in the front row. I'd like
So
to
that's a
welcome
bit
him.
harsh.
Well, he's 30, so he can bring that average age up. But Donovan and Douglas are both now going to join us on stage. So everyone, if you could just welcome them onto the stage for us, please. Donovan, I was going to say to you, please mind your knee stepping onto the stage. It's quite a step.
It's going for you today, isn't he?
Yeah, it's not holding.
We'll touch upon that to start with immediately. Is it a frustrating time for you now to have picked that injury up at this time, 2 weeks prior to the season starting?
Yeah, it's a really frustrating situation. Personally, I've put a lot of work in throughout pre-season with the squad, within my own body, but this situation has come about and we've kind of got to get it fixed now, and it should be a quick recovery time, so I can be back out there helping the boys, but it's part and parcel of putting your body on the line and playing football.
And obviously for yourself, you've not really had a break throughout the summer. Obviously you get a little bit of time away to yourself, but going away on international duty, there's then that added pressure and added, exposure on your body at that point, isn't there, to go away and just not really have that break from the trials and tribulations of a League Two season. That was a pretty tough one for the group.
Yeah, 100%. Like last year, I played 42 games for Walsall and I think 4 international appearances, and then that's with an injury that I missed 6-7 weeks with, and then in the summer going away and doing international. Traveling the world, there's pros to it, there's amazing moments there, but from a rest point of view, I didn't get the same amount of rest as the boys, and then coming back in and having to hit the ground running for pre-season, it's challenging, but I'm not saying, well, me, I'm pulling up my pants and keeping it moving. Like, I've got to get myself back out there to support the boys and contribute to the team from a leader's perspective and from just a teammate's perspective. So once we get this operation out of the way, I'm fully recovered. I'll be out there playing my best stuff and helping the boys along the way.
I think it's certainly a testament to your commitment, not just to your club, but your country as well. The hours you put in, the time you put in. So, it's a testament for you, and I wish you speedy recovery and all the best for the surgery as well coming up. So is it a case of just knuckling down now, working as hard as you can, and, there's always that possibility you can come back stronger, better than ever, and perhaps ahead of schedule. That can also happen, can't it? It's about being optimistic, isn't it?
100%. I think there is that thought process that once the operation's done, and the surgeon's done what he needs to do, that the recovery time can be reduced, but we're just kind of putting it to that 6 to 8 weeks mark, and just everything from there is an upside. I appreciate you acknowledging my commitment, but I think it's a given. When you're a professional, you kind of got to give your all to not just yourself, but to your teammates, to the people that pay to come and support your club. And yeah, it's just my character as an individual. So I appreciate you acknowledging it, but that's just me.
You mentioned your commitment to football side of things in terms of being a professional, but for yourself now, talking about life after football, I know you're still probably a couple of years away from that, but congratulations on being accepted onto a directorship for football with the PFA. Is that something that's there now in the back of your mind about thinking about things, thinking about life after professional football in terms of a playing career?
Yeah, I've always had a curiosity for the business side of football. I've always wanted to educate myself so I can become something after my playing days are over. I think I've got a lot more than a couple of years left in me, just to correct you, Tom. But the acceptance for the Global Sporting Directorship that I'm going to start in September is I'm really excited for. It's something that I've kind of talked myself in and out for a couple of years. Just that imposter syndrome type thing. Can I do it? Am I going to be good enough? And we've had conversations where you've kind of just said, Skip, you can go and achieve that. I've had conversations with Douglas about stuff like this. And I don't think you could ever start too early, but it's definitely the right time for me. Just giving myself to it, because I've picked up a lot of experience helping our club, Walsall, when I speak to Ben, when we've done certain scouting and speaking on players and just recruiting even some staff members. It's something that I am very keen to pursue after the playing days are over, but I still have a lot of playing days ahead of me.
Oh yeah, apologies, you do have more than a couple of years. But being able to look further than what you're currently doing, I suppose, as your role as captain, you've mentioned advising Douglas on things like that. There are other youngsters in the group who may not necessarily have that forward-thinking mentality of life after football, because in relative terms, a football playing career is quite short in regards to just being able to, experience and enjoy it. Some players might be lucky to get 15 years out of that career, so it is short. What advice do you then give to the younger players in the group about being able to take that next step out of football?
So that is part of my role, and sometimes it's hard because when I've been in this game for so long and I've been in so many different dressing rooms, you always have to be mindful of the type of dressing room you're in. But our dressing room at Walsall is one of people that just want to learn. Whether it's learn from me through my playing experience or learn from the coaching staff, they want to improve. And when it comes to the topic of stuff away from football, everybody has their own interest. And our current climate now, where we have our PFA who put on so many amazing courses or just seminars so you could be aware of what's out there for you as an individual, it's amazing. And I always sit down and speak to, whether it's the likes of Ram, Douglas when he was in there, even some of the older boys, like Jammer is in there. He gives a lot of advice to a lot of the boys. It's just about keeping yourself, just keep learning. And you can't force somebody because it could be too early for them. They could still just be in that phase where they're just killing time, to use that term. But then there's also, it comes a time where you have to be ready to go and do stuff. And Douglas, for instance, he's recently just finished a course, and he's enjoyed it. So you could ask him a good question about that.
And kind of sticking on the same kind of topic of leadership, in our most recent episode, an interview with Tom Knowles, which came out yesterday, we asked him one of our quickfire questions, which was, who in the dressing room would make the best manager? Now, to no surprise, he named you. So what I want to know is, how much does Matt Sadler lean on his more experienced pros, and how important is that in the dressing room? He's named the likes of kind of Jammer, who really steps up. So how are you guys being lent on, and how is it improving the dressing room?
It's a really good question. Nosy stuff. The gaffer, what I really love about the gaffer is he doesn't have any real ego. He uses the more experienced players like myself, like Jammer, even the young players that have pull and sway within the dressing room, he values their opinion. And whether we're doing a tactical session or whether it's debriefing a game, he wants the opinion of every single person. So we would sit down and do analysis, and from the youngest player to Ram to like a young, inexperienced player in comparison to myself, like Douglas. Douglas has a massive voice in our dressing room. The gaffer values all of our opinions, but it's what he does with it. And the likes of myself and Jammer, we've sat down and had conversations with the gaffer how we could help implement and improve certain things within a day-to-day, the running of the squad, or tactical stuff, but then he still has his coaching staff to help him make those decisions.
You mentioned Sads there in regards to what he's like in terms of leaning on people, but he's an incredibly level-headed person in regards to you don't get too high with the highs, doesn't get too low with the lows. He'll always come out with us after a game, and he's always incredibly well thought out in regards to that. From a player's perspective, how important is it that you've got that as well to show that you've got a manager who's calm in those sorts of situations?
It's really important. I think it's been a breath of fresh air in comparison to the history that dressing room and our club has had in terms of a manager. Sometimes from a personal point of view, it's very, very frustrating because I always have to be bad cop. Me and the gaffer, we have this thing where he would go in and he, as you said, very calm. He analyzes the outcome of the game and he articulates it in a really digestible way for the group. But then you need sometimes to get a rocket up. And I'm normally the one to be bad cop. So it's a good balance.
Just to round off with yourself, Donovan, obviously coming in this season, back for pre-season, when you look at it as captain, was it nice sort of coming back and it was pretty much largely all the same faces again, it was the same group? And when you look at where we were at the start of pre-season 12 months ago to where we are now, do you feel we're in a stronger position?
It's a tough question, that. I think as a squad, we are in a more stable and more positive position to go and attack the season. Most of the squad understand what the gaffer wants from us, and we have a system, you guys touched on it earlier, we have a system that we play, and everybody understands that. There's some new bodies that's come in that are learning that, but because the majority of the squad know what we're doing, do that. We could bounce off each other. I do agree that there needs to be some additions in certain areas, and once that is completed, I think we can fly. I think from a squad's perspective, we were a little bit disappointed with how the season ended, and we have aspirations to achieve amazing things this season, and I think we will do that. We like to go quietly about our business as a group of players and as a club. I think we don't like to go out there and be brash and say we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But because of the work we've put in, we know what we believe we want as the outcome.
Brilliant stuff, Donovan. And Dougie, yourself, obviously you've come over to Ireland now. First of all, how are you finding life over here, both on the pitch and off the pitch as well?
I'm
going very well.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. First thing I noticed was the sea, which you don't get much of in Walsall. So I'm enjoying the sea. And then the people, I think, everywhere you go, whether it's the butcher's down the road from the house or the snooker hall, everyone wants to talk and cheerful, happy, always a bit of banter. That's what you like. So I've been welcomed really well since I've arrived, so it's been pretty easy settling in.
You're saying no one in Warsaw's got banter, is that what you're saying?
No. No, you've got banter, but everyone else now.
Obviously, it looks like you made a really good start on the pitch, scoring goals early doors. How important was it for you to hit the ground running and get off the mark very early like you have done?
Yeah, I think when I look back on my time at Walsall, it's been a bit out of character in terms of my numbers for the amount of minutes that I played, and in my head I felt like, coming off the bench and racking up these minutes, it sort of dents your confidence a little bit in terms of your goal scoring ability. But I think deep down I always knew that when I get the opportunity to start and play consistently, then I can perform and put the ball in the back of the net. And I think coming to Drogheda has been the perfect opportunity for me to showcase that, and I did what I could in the off-season to be ready, because I knew I wasn't going to have a pre-season. I was going to come straight into the middle of the season, and it's been a good start so far, but obviously we want to get out of that relegation zone, and I've got some individual targets I want to hit, and I think come November we want to be sitting at the league table thinking we don't even have playoffs. We want to be right there in the cup as well. So we've got a long way to go as well.
Have you noticed much of a difference between the two levels of football in terms of League Two and the League of Ireland?
I think for me this has been the perfect style of football because it's very hectic. There's a lot of balls that are 50-50, a lot of intensity throughout the whole 90 minutes in terms of in possession, out of possession. It's very quick in terms of actions. So for me, someone who needs to work on sides of my play, like my hold-up play, I'd say, is an area that I want to improve on, my link-up play and things like that. It gives me opportunity to be practicing those actions constantly over and over and over again, whilst also having to be on the ball for the whole 90 minutes. It's the same thing in League Two, but I'd say there's a much more emphasis in terms of structure and your positioning. So there's two different sides to the game that you get in League Two compared to the League of Ireland. I think it's pretty ideal for me, the style of playing the League of Ireland, for the things that I need to be working on to be at that next level.
I was going to say, it sounds like this has been the perfect opportunity, the perfect loan move for you to sort of round yourself off as a player, really.
Yeah, I think, obviously, first of all, I was a little bit apprehensive of moving away from home, moving from England, and it's a big thing. But I think when you see Manny, Freddie, all of these players going from England to Ireland and how much they loved it and enjoyed their time here, it was like, I'm going to trust their word and what people have advised me to do. And I think I've been really lucky to have this opportunity as well.
Donovan said that you'd done a course, there. Do you want to talk us through a little bit more about that in terms of that forward-thinking thing that not many young professionals, often have, particularly at a lower league level as well?
I think I've always done something with football. I've always done my schoolwork with football, something alongside it. So I think it's that part of my character that has pushed me to do things like the courses, like reading. Me and Donovan lived together with Owen Evans from last season. So we're always trying to stimulate each other in terms of reading things, watching things. He's got me into anime, Naruto. So there's loads of different things that we try and bounce off each other. And Donovan's doing more than just his course. He's doing all sorts. And the same here. We're always trying to learn, I think. And he's writing something as well. He might not want to say it, but he's writing a little something that hopefully one day will come out. I think just always wanting to do something alongside of football, just constantly stimulating your mind and learning more, really. Yeah.
Look, we already talked about how you're getting on the pitch and how things have been since you got here, but from a fan's perspective, what have you made of us in terms of our support? Obviously, the atmosphere is a bit hectic as well, as you mentioned on the pitch it is, but in particular the Dundalk game, the Cup a couple of weeks ago, what do you make of the difference in the atmosphere over here compared to over there?
I think there's passion at Walsall and there's passion at Drogheda, first of all, but I think over here, the way that you spoke about being at your brother's birthday, but it was the worst day of your life, says it all, I think. You can tell everyone is there fighting for you on the pitch. You feel that with how close the stadium is as well. You got the flares out, the flags out, all sorts of things. You come out, you're thinking, this is what you want from a football match. You want that passion, you want that energy. So you definitely feel it all from when you're on the pitch.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going really well for you, Dougie, so really pleased to hear that and that you've settled in really well. And obviously you've got a foot in both camps and, that synergy between the two clubs is growing and growing. So we're going to find out how much yourself, Dougie, and Donovan know about both clubs with a little quiz. So it's a question of sports style. So you'll each get 3 questions, and for each one you'll have a choice of whether you want home or away. So Donovan, a home question for you will be about yourself and Walsall. Dougie, home will be Drogheda for yourself. Away for you, Dougie, will be Walsall, and away for you will be Drogheda, Donovan. So who would like to go first?
So I've got the upper hand here, really.
Well, no pressure then. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, so home question is worth 1 point and away question is worth 3. So,
I'll start with a home question.
okay. So for home question, Donovan, it's one about yourself. Against which club did you make your Walsall debut against?
Bradford City.
A point to Donovan.
Thank you very much.
Man of the match that night, wasn't it?
I was, yeah.
Okay, Dougie, home or away?
I'll go away. Let's get the 3 points in.
Who did you score your first goal for Walsall against?
Carlisle.
Correct.
Was that the FA Cup game?
Big scenes in the press box. Love bites and everything, Tom, wasn't it? It was like celebrating the fact that not only we got to the third round, we're not going for a replay in Carlisle. So thanks for that, Doug.
That would have messed up our Christmas tea,
That was a mad one.
Okay, that's 3 points to Dougie then. So Donovan, home or away?
Away. I'm going to go away.
So other than Douglas, can you name the other 3 players who have been at both Walsall and Drogheda throughout their career?
So easy.
Evo, Fred, and...
Oh, no.
3 points to Donovan.
Thank you.
Home or away?
I'll go home. It's time.
Who is currently Drogheda's top goal scorer in the League of Ireland this season?
France.
Correct. On 5. I think that's 4-4 at the minute, isn't it? Oh, we're going to a decider. Home or away, Donovan?
Home.
Ooh. How many appearances have you made for Walsall?
Fred, I think 100 and... No, wait. I've not logged that question yet. I've not logged it yet.
Need the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire music in the background there.
Can I phone a friend? I'm going to say 108.
Final answer?
Final answer.
You've made 104 appearances.
God, I've just given myself 4 extra games.
It's to win it, Dougie. Home or away?
I'll go home.
What position did Drogheda finish in the league last season? You're going to get chucked out of the building soon, Doug.
I got a picture of the flash score league table. Fourth?
Final answer?
No? Third.
That's your final answer.
I feel like there's a bit of cheating happening there. He's getting whispers.
What? I'm just thinking out loud. All right, we'll go fifth. Fifth, final answer.
Final answer twice.
So after going around the entire table, avoiding one position, it was 7th.
Oh. You should lose points for that.
7th.
So that makes it a tie. So I reckon we need a...
Yeah, we'll finish.
I'll tell you what.
whoever downs a Guinness the fastest wins. That's fair.
What I'm thinking, I might just fire a question out there, and then whoever's either gets it right or is the closest to it will win. So, in what year did Drogheda win the League of Ireland? So I want you to both give me an answer, and then whoever's closest or is right will win. Silence in the audience, please.
I'll be honest, I do not know that much about beautiful Drogheda. So that question feels one-sided. Because Douglas...
I mean, well, based on his last answer, but not so.
I'm going to say 2020.
So closest to it wins. All right. 2019.
Well, you're both nowhere near, but Douglas, you are closest. It was 2007.
Just on that, I want to thank everybody who's joined us here at the TLT Theatre for this special edition of the Walsall Rewind. A massive thanks to the guys from the Yellow Ribbon podcast who've joined us, and those guys from Drogheda as well. Dougie, Donovan, thank you for joining us for the second half of this, and everybody who's been here in the audience with us as well. Thank you so much for coming over, supporting the lads on tour. I hope you enjoy the game this evening. Sponsors-wise, it's been a brilliant occasion to have you all over here with us as well. Your support, doesn't go unnoticed at the football club, and I think we had a fantastic evening last night out there at Sea Point as well. It was a great occasion. I hope you've all managed to enjoy, a pint or two of Guinness. So, just again, thank you very much for all of your support, here as well, coming to this live event. It's the first one for us as a club, and, it's been great to see so many people here coming to support us. But yeah, thank you very much. We're going to open the floor up to you guys now if you've got any questions for Donovan or Douglas there from your guys' perspective.
Donovan, I'll ask you a question if that's okay. So, just for context, I run an energy business and really interested to understand you talk about the business side of things. So, I guess trying to ask you a question balance between business and sports. In business, you really have to look at things as a glass half full rather than half empty. You have to be really positive because there's lots of challenges, just like in football. There's a saying in our business, identify your problems but put your energy into the solutions. In a sports perspective, how do you balance keeping a positive mindset versus being bad cop, which you spoke about earlier?
It's a good question. Football happens so fast, and the way you've just articulated it, it is very similar to business. You have to, in my case, you have to manage yourself, you have to manage your own emotions, but sometimes that might not be in sync with the reality of things. Like, I have an injury to my knee, which needs surgery, and that is a challenge. That is mentally a challenge, physically a challenge. But I also have to be present for my team. I have commitments as a captain, as a leader, for my teammates. There's responsibilities that are placed on me from the higher-ups, the manager, Ben Boycott, the owner, and my teammates look at me for upliftment, for encouragement, for tactical advice, life advice, and sometimes I'm going for it myself. So it's tough to be all those things and do all those things at the same time. So in a nutshell, I don't know.
Trust me, I'm in the same boat. Don't worry, mate.
Yeah.
To Douglas. Obviously, you came from Stoke after being on loan and signed, like Dave, at Kegbe. So, did you actually come through together? And what actually made you stay at Walsall after your loan spell?
He's younger than me. He's a year younger than me. So we played a couple of years in the 23s together at Stoke. So I knew a lot about Dave before he came, and he was speaking to me about Walsall before he came on loan last season. For me, it was a bit different because I didn't get offered a contract extension from Stoke. So it was a lot about looking at what options I had and where I felt the most comfortable going, that I'd have the support to play. Obviously, I knew a lot of the players, staff from Walsall, so it sort of made sense because I'd been there, I knew what I was getting myself into, I knew the people that were going to be around me, so it did feel a little bit like a no-brainer to come back to Walsall. See, at the end of this season, my first season, Sads the gaffer was there, so I knew as well that he was staying. So, yeah, it just sort of made sense pretty early on before I signed permanently, yeah.
Any others?